Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. We've got the privilege of having Ricky McFarlane and George Keane on with us tonight from the Sports Science team at the club. So we'll bring them on shortly. Just a couple of things. News that the club shop will be open until 6:30 on a Tuesday on non-match days. And on a Saturday, it will be open after the game as well. I know a lot of people have been asking this, especially with the picking up of shirts and everything like that. So they have listened, and they will be opening after the game, and also on a Tuesday night until 6:30. I think that's all I have to say, and I will bring Vic on. Hello, Vic.
Good evening to you, Chris. How are you this very warm and sultry Monday evening?
I'm good. We haven't had the thunder and lightning and rain that we thought we were going to have. We had about 5 spots up here, and that was about it. So,
well, we've had it. It's on its way. Trust me.
Okay.
So, yeah. Just to say about SAS Travel, they'll be open tomorrow night, of course, at the town end, just behind the town end in their office, and seats for Stockport. First visit to Edgeley Park for some considerable time. In a couple of weeks' time. So if you want to book a seat for Stockport, you can go tomorrow night at the county ground for the game and book your seat there.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so let's bring Ricky and George on without further ado. Hi, Ricky.
Thanks for having us on, guys.
No problem. And hi, George. How are you?
Hi, all very well, thanks.
Good. Okay, so I will go. I'm doing the questions tonight, so please, anything you want to Vic to ask the guys, please put them in the comments, and we will get through as many as we can. As usual, we can't ask everything, we just haven't got the time, but as always, what I will do is collate the questions, and I'll send it on to Ricky and George after this stream, and then they can see what has been said. Okay, so I will leave you, and I'll see you later.
Chris, very good. Thank you very much indeed. And a very good evening to you, Ricky, and to George. Thank you very much. I know you've had a busy day already, so we really appreciate that. And your work isn't done. No. So you've got to go back to the county ground. First and foremost, let's find out how you get over Saturday, for instance. I mean, those of us who travelled to Carlisle know how bad it was just sitting and watching. How do players recover from that, Ricky?
I think, like any sports person in these sort of conditions, hydration's a huge factor. Our lads are, really good with. We provide a lot of, fluids, electrolytes, and stuff like that at the club. The lads are pretty good with taking those on board, especially in that, really pivotal 4 hours after the game. We have a daily weigh-in anyway. The players will weigh out and stuff like that, so we know how much weight they've lost through fluid. And we'll look to replace that in that first 4 hours and try and continue that into, obviously, Tuesday night now. Try and make sure everyone's hydration is optimal and get as much food in them as we can.
Yeah, George, that's important, isn't it? Because Ricky said the 4 hours after the game. And then, of course, you've got another 90 minutes to sort of play tomorrow night. How crucial are those 4 hours after the match?
Well, the fact that we've got another 5 hours sort of travel back is a big thing, and sort of we try and make the most out of that time. For example, on Saturday, some of the lads had flushes, like soft tissue massages straight after the game. Certain lads like using equipment like Normatex, which is like a compression device to help flush the legs through. So some of them will do that on the coach on the way back. Frenchie, for example, likes using sort of compression cuffs, which kind of restrict all the blood flow to his lower limb, just to help flush all the rubbish basically out of his legs. And it's kind of like a chance just to load up on fluids and food, but also try and relax a little bit, trying to get a bit of rest in on that coach home. A big thing from Saturday, especially with the heat, was just trying to get lads cool again after the match. During at half time, for example, we've got cold towels for lads to try and cool in between the two halves, and then after the match, just trying to do the same, really, just to get their core body temperature down.
Yeah, sitting on a bus for 4 or 5 hours, Ricky, is not ideal, is it? After you've played a game in that heat, I mean, no. Those of us, on the way back for the supporters bus, it's not ideal, but your muscles tighten up. I mean, it was exceptional Saturday, wasn't it? And what steps did you take before the game because of those conditions?
Well, we have been pretty stringent with our hydration testing the whole way through pre-season, leading into this season. So we have markers on every player going into the weekend and into the games. If anyone does, go above a certain dehydration rate, then we're obviously on top of that. As I said earlier, the lads have been really good with staying on top of their hydration. So making sure we're doing those tests leading up to it, making sure we're making as much available as possible for them to be in the best possible position come Saturday, really. As George said, making sure we try and cool them down after training. So there's a lot of ice baths, cold towels, cold showers, as well as, the key thing being our hydration status.
We're getting questions coming in already. Kevin, hello from the old Duffers. Can you ask if they think Lou Macari and Paolo Di Canio were wrong to train players so hard? Why are players getting cramp after 70 minutes now? It used to be an extra time. George, I suppose what they're alluding to, and what I was going to ask you about, I mean, sports science has moved on centuries now, hasn't it? Compared to, when I started watching football in the 60s and 70s, you used to get a man running on with a bucket and a sponge, and that would be that. But, what about that? The fact that players seem to get cramp, is it because the game's quicker? How would you describe it?
Well, I think the difficulty is players got fitter, but so the opposition, if that makes sense. They're still competing against other fit people. So even if the game is speeding up and the demands of the game are higher, the boys are probably conditioned more now than they were, just because we know a little bit more and bits and pieces, but they're still competing against others who are on a sort of level playing field. We like to think we can try and get the lads higher than most of the teams in the Football League, but they're still competing against other fit individuals. So when you're comparing against two teams, it's probably likely fatigue. The fatigue is there. Also at the weekend, because of the temperature and things like that, that just puts an extra stress to each of the player. So I wouldn't say we train the boys lightly. We do work the boys hard, and lots of successful teams have done loads. Lots of successful teams have done not as much. It's just kind of working with the players you've got, really.
Yeah, because I think Scott Lindsay, Ricky, said the players were fatigued. He ran them fatigued. I think it was against Cardiff. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so the human body doesn't know running, doesn't know weights. It just knows just stress and a response. To get a response or an adaptation, so making the players fitter, we need to put them under a certain level of stress to get to the levels that we aim to get to as a club. Certainly this year and towards, November, December, we had to put the players through quite a considerable amount of stress in pre-season. And, whilst you have the opportunity where there are no points on the line, then playing some games where the boys have run a considerable amount during the week is your only option. Obviously, with, mitigated risk, we use a lot of GPS and stuff like that to monitor where the lads are at and, make more calculated choices than maybe Paolo Di Canio might have, but ultimately to get the response and to get the sort of conditioning we want out of the lads, we had to do that in pre-season, and it's not uncommon in football. It's not uncommon in other field-based sports as well.
Yeah, that goes along with the question, George, we got from Craig here. He says, I'm intrigued to know what kind of data you can download from the GPS sports vests in matches and how that data is used in recovery, preparation and assessing fitness. We all know those things. They look like bras, if I might put it like that. There's a GPS in there, and now you've got little GPS posts, I think, either side of the dugout. It all goes into computers. They use them a lot in rugby. So what is that, George? I mean, how do you analyse? Can you analyse through the game whether a player's condition is dropping? How does that work?
Yeah, so those devices have thousands of different metrics they look at. So it's quite tough. Well, the difficulty is picking out the ones that are most important to the team and how you want to play, really. So certain things during the game, we have live feedback of things such as total distance. We use a metric high-speed running, which is basically any distance above a certain speed threshold. And then finally, is probably our main one we use is meters per minute, basically how much are the players moving per minute. And we kind of use this as a bit of like a as a performance indicator halfway through the first half, and then at the end of the first half to kind of see how the lads are getting on. We typically find the more the lads are moving, the better we seem to be playing. So in quite a basic sort of framework we use, that's kind of what we look at. And then after the game, we download all the data, and then basically put a report together for the manager. And we also do this after every training session. So some weeks we might want to progress the lads through their loads, so increase their total distance, high speed running, look at their max velocity, try and get a good exposure of that every week. And then some weeks we might want to pull people back, like a deload week, to try and get some called super compensation, where we can then get a spike in performance in the following weeks. So that's kind of how we use it, just to monitor each player individually, really, because of the size of the squad and things. People are at different places. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because a couple of questions here. One from Nick, which says, are the players still playing fatigued? And Dan says, when will the players be at the level of fitness, Ricky? You can understand what he means by that, because are they still fatigued or are they at peak level of fitness? Because I would imagine you can train all you like in pre-season, but the only reason you get really fit, match fit, is to play matches, isn't it? So where are they at the minute, would you say?
You know, in terms of, if we look at our peers and other clubs, and obviously we have friends in other clubs, we talk to other heads of sports science. Last year we was, towards the end of the year, we was really up there. We was a really fit side, and we're on track to be there again this year, even earlier than we was last year. If we're looking at the sort of data that myself and George are looking at on a weekly basis, it's not like an Olympic sport. So where you'll have 4 periods throughout the year where you can ultimately peak and then have a little bit of rest time afterwards. You don't have that luxury. So the way you go about creating those adaptations and creating that, that stress has to be a lot more controlled. So the peaks and troughs look a lot closer together, essentially. So it's not, for us at the minute, we're absolutely bang on where we need to be. Looking at where we was, say, this time last year compared to where we are this year, we're ahead. And if that's an indicator of where we'll be come, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks time, then R1 will be very, very happy with where we're at conditioning wise at that point.
That's very good to know. Let's have a look. I'm intrigued. Hang on. Anthony says, Rick or George, can you summarise the daily and weekly training pattern for our players? Because I'm guessing, George, that, after a game like Saturday, yesterday would have been a day of recovery. And I think they were back in training this afternoon, wouldn't they? Would that have been a light training session, a heavy training session? What would it have been?
So that typically depends on... so the lads who played a full 90 minutes would obviously do a lot less than everyone else. Some lads who weren't involved would need a bit more of a top up, so they did a bit more at the end of the session once all the tactical sort of work had been done. So it's kind of making sure everyone gets what they need, rather than having a one size fits all approach. But yeah, like you said, it was quite light today for the lads who played a fair few minutes of the weekend. And just to add to what Rick said about our lads still playing fatigue, just the nature of the season means that probably no player who's playing consistently is ever fully fresh. And if you're a proper player and having a proper career, you probably, a lot of the senior boys probably never feel too fresh. It's about making them as fresh as they can be, really. And yeah, that's just the nature of the season, really.
Yeah, you mentioned senior players there, George. I mean, many people, Ricky, would look at Matt Bowdry and say, hang on a minute, where did we sign him from? Because he seems to be 21 again. I mean, what have you done to do this with Matt Bowdry? Because he's had terrible injury problems, as we all know. But
he still dresses like he's 21.
What have you done to sort of improve that?
Myself and George from rugby backgrounds. And we personally think that rugby is probably quite a way ahead of football still. And if you look at the data, although different sports and different running volumes, there's a dramatic change in muscular tears and stuff in rugby. And for us, the one difference was they're bigger men. There's a lot more muscle in their bodies. So when we come in last year our first remit was let's make sure everyone can play a considerable amount of games, and to do that, it took putting a bit of muscle on people. Frenchie's a great pro. He is a great pro. He will do everything you ask of him. All the extra work. He'll do stuff when he's at home. He'll do extra gym work. So more than anything, really, you can take a horse to water, but it has to drink itself. And we've kind of just showed Frenchie the way of, a different way of preparing himself. And he's took to it, and hopefully he'll continue to bear the fruits.
I mean, without you telling us any secrets, there's a thought he can't play 2 games in a week. I mean, is that nonsense now, or is it, how would you describe that?
I think that the notion of senior players not being able to play 2 games in a week is a bit short-sighted, because, if you're looking towards the end of last year, he played every minute of every game for the last 12 games. But you've got to look at the context of a season, where you are, what the data says, where we are in our season and stuff like that, and kind of plan accordingly. Because there's always risks with every player if they play, 3 times in 10 days, whatever it is, and how your plan, how well your planning is done to keep every player for 55 games or 56 games, whatever it is, depends on them being fit and healthy. So certainly Frenchie did play Saturday, Tuesdays at the end of last year, and did it very well. I thought he was unbelievable in the running. Whether things change this year, or he plays Saturday, Tuesday one week and then Saturday the week after, it's all down to keeping the best Matt Baldry on the pitch for the whole season.
Yeah, exactly. Brad asks, George, and this is quite an interesting question in a general sense, really. I'd love to know Wakelin's running data. What a player is already. Really impressed by him. I mean, there are some players who can run, can't they? I mean, you watch McCurdy on Saturday, for instance. Goodness, I'm not sure I could run 10 yards on Saturday, let alone the amount of running he did. But, somebody like Wakelin, are they naturally fit? I mean, there must be athletes who are much more naturally fit than others, and that's just the way of it.
Well, yeah, we like to call him the Wasp or the Duracell Bunny. That's our little nicknames for Jake. Some lads are, people in general predisposed. Can't say the word, but genetically more likely to be fit than others. The good thing about Jake is he's willing to run, and being fit is one thing, but actually having the desire and determination to run week in, week out, or for each minute is one thing. Whilst also being really fit himself, looks after himself really well. He's followed what Rick and I have said from day one, to his credit, and just a lot of will and determination. Really, wouldn't want to say we've done. We can't take too much credit, because the lad really does work hard, and he's a good lad, really, and he does work his socks off.
Ricky, you as a sort of final say, if the manager comes to you and says, "Look, is so and so going to be fit for tomorrow night? He's had a hard game on Saturday." What's the discussion there? What kind of decisions are made?
Ultimately, all we can do as sports science and as a medical staff as well is give our informed opinion. The good thing with the gaffer is very open to our way of thinking, and does take it on board and will take it on board. Like any decision really that involves us, we will sit down as a group and discuss, and come to more of a group decision more than anything. Obviously, the gaffer always has the final say. He's the gaffer. That's his job. But he certainly does take our opinion. Take our opinion on board, and shows us a lot of respect as well. Which myself and George are still young in the game, to be shown that respect from a man that has done a lot in football is quite nice.
Yeah, good. We'll get into your backgrounds if we can in a minute, because I want to talk about how you got into this. But there's another question here, George, from Old Duffer Ratter. Don't forget the Old Duffers videos are available on YouTube, and they're always worth watching. How much did this heat affect the players' fitness, and how hard is this to manage? We kind of touched on it before, but it's been exceptional. Let's be honest. And it looks as though it's coming to an end, but it does take its toll, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we had to kind of adjust our training week with that initial heat wave. Kind of simple things of bringing the lads in a bit earlier, trying to reduce the volume of sessions a touch, but keeping the intensity there, and just making lads more aware of their, like we said earlier, their hydration status through regular testing and things like that. Obviously, an added stress to the. Rick's gone.
Rick's gone. Yeah.
Obviously, an added stress to the boys, but it's the same for everyone. So just kind of mitigate the risk as much as we can and adjust the schedule to try and get what we wanted from the sessions.
Yeah, Kevin said, I'm getting cramp a lot. Is it because I don't drink enough water? I guess hydration plays a part. We all get cramp now, don't we? Because the body feels slightly different in these conditions, doesn't it? You do need to drink a lot.
Yeah, and it's not just drinking the water. What kind of allows you to be hydrated is things like the electrolyte levels. So that's what we add to the drinks, along with other things like carb powder to try and. As football's quite a carbohydrate or energy efficient sort of sport. That's what we add to the drinks. But yeah, electrolyte levels add a bit of that to your drink will help that. And it's also just a capacity, being able to withstand whatever you're doing. If it's like a manual job you're doing and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, if you were working in a welding shop, you'd need to drink a lot, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
There we are. Oh gosh, lots of questions coming in. So Kevin says, why doesn't Johnny Williams play a full game? Is it a fitness problem? What, from a sports science point of view, is there anything intrinsically that he can't do that a 90-minute player can do, or is it? How would you describe that?
Well, Johnny came in this season in great condition. We gave him a bit of rest after his time away with Wales.
Yeah.
But Johnny's in better condition this season than he was last season. From our point of view, there's no reason he can't play full 90 minutes. It might just be a case that the manager feels like the game requires change. But yeah, from our point of view, Johnny's more than capable of playing 90 minutes and being effective from start to finish.
Okay, fair enough. Ricky is giving us a tour of Swindon.
Apologies. Very fitting that my phone actually stopped due to temperature. I apologise.
Well, they do, don't they?
Yeah.
Henry says, we have the best sports science department in League Two. Keeping Johnny and Frenchie fit for long periods show their class. And I know Luke sent me a message to say that you two are always available for games at warm-ups and have a chat to fans, which, people appreciate. I think it's fair to say. Sean says, is it true Darcy isn't quite match fit yet? That's the reason he hasn't featured too much at the moment. Ricky, I mean, is that down to fitness or just a decision by the manager?
No, Darcy's fit. Obviously, he's one of the new lads, and getting used to the way we play as a club and stuff like that. But he's absolutely fine, and I'm sure he'll have a large part to play in our season. Another very fit lad.
Excellent. We see players taking fluid, some sort of a small sealed bag. What is in it? Is it pure glucose? Now, these are gels, aren't they, George? That you see cyclists use a lot on the Tour de France when they climb up a mountain, for goodness sake. So it is pretty much pure sugar, isn't it, or something? How is it? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a real sweet gel, flavoured. Sometimes we give lads before a match some caffeine, sometimes included in the gels. But yeah, it's purely just really sweet, sort of sharp tasting gel, really.
Gets it into the bloodstream quickly, I guess, isn't it?
That's
the main aim.
The goal from them.
Yeah. Who takes the lead with players' mental health? Have there been times when players didn't play because they weren't in the right place? We talk a lot about mental health these days, and rightly so. Ricky, is that's something the club takes seriously? I'm sure it is.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, player well-being is at the forefront of what we do. Hence why the club is so forward-thinking with what's provided for the players. But no, we've never had, touch wood, we've never had anyone have to miss games because of mental well-being, and hopefully that stays the same this year.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure we'd be equipped to deal with it if it came our way. But as I say, hopefully it will never happen.
Fair enough. Christopher said, "Who's the biggest physical freak you work with at Swindon, George? Who's the fitness fanatic? Who is it?"
Well, sort of specimen-wise, I'd probably say Tyree Simpson. Last season, he was something else for his size.
Ben Gladwin's come back this year, an absolute animal.
Yeah, Ben Gladwin.
Who else?
Um,
Jake O'Brien.
Yeah, Jacob. Yeah,
He had some pretty impressive numbers for a big lad.
Yeah.
Lewis Reed as well on endurance standpoint. He hit over the 12k mark 4 or 5 times last year. Was regularly over 11.
I would imagine Jack Payne as well would have been up there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Payne was really consistent.
Yeah,
like his performances, but from a physical point of view, really consistent as well.
Yeah, you're all action sort of player.
Yeah, right. I know you've got to go back to the county guard, but I wanted to get into your background a little bit, Ricky. You first of all, you're head of sports science.
Yeah.
You've been here since August 2021.
Yeah.
You're also co-founder of PWR Sports Performance and Medical Clinic and Tar Heel State Uni. Tell us about Tar Heel State Uni, and you learned a lot there, I think, didn't you?
So I, upon my retirement from rugby, I thought, well, I actually knew that my career wasn't going to last very long towards the end of it. So I started my education and then had the opportunity to go to North Carolina when I retired. Packed my bag.
And we
mate.
lost his sound. And he's gone again. How about you then, George? What's your background?
Oh, is he back?
Yeah, he's back. You back?
Oh,
No, can't hear you.
You're muted again, Rick.
No, still not. George, whatever your background, we'll get back to him in a second. But what about you?
So, my playing background was in rugby. I'm only 23, so this is my first full-time job out of university. Whilst at university, I did a year with West Ham Academy, which I really enjoyed. It basically enabled me with the sort of skill set to come in and work here straight out of uni. I know Rick from playing rugby. I'll be honest, that was my aspiration to play rugby full time. But COVID hit and things like that, so this role came available, and I really couldn't turn it down. It was such a big club, especially straight out of uni. I couldn't turn it down, and it's been learning loads and really enjoying it.
Well, we've got a message here from somebody called Ali Willett, so I think you might know.
Oh yeah.
She says Ellis is quite a beast in the gym and stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, Ellis is he is deceptively strong and fit. He always looks like he's absolutely shattered, but he never stops going. Looks like a panting dog, but the boy don't stop. So yeah, he's impressive, great pro, really nice lad.
Excellent. Ali, thank you very much indeed. Nice to hear from you. Ricky, we're in the middle of you going off to North Carolina. You were packing your bag. You were going to get an education. What happened when you got there?
I worked under, so I had a bit of a baptism of fire, really. I worked under Travis Mash, who was head of USA weightlifting at the time, and also ran a pretty prestigious NFL combine program. So whilst doing my education, was thrown in the deep end, and I'd like to think I come out swimming a little bit. Apart from the various taunting about my accent, and then upon coming back from there, continued really just working freelance, learning, and just had a real crack at it.
Yeah, you've been involved with a lot of sports, haven't you? I was looking at it earlier on. I mean, American football's one, mixed martial arts and boxing. You've worked with just about everybody in that world, including somebody called Kell Brook, who's quite successful, I believe. Yeah. And you've got your own gym, etc. I mean, gosh, how do you get to that position?
Obviously, I've been very fortunate and lucky at times, but obviously it takes a little bit of luck. But I'm a big believer in you got to work for what you want. So we have put in some long hours and long weeks and long years, and as I said, a little bit of luck. And when that luck comes, you got to take it. So when the likes of Kell Brook, Billy Joe Saunders and these sort of people come ringing, you got to dive in 2-footed, basically.
Absolutely. And you are part of the same organisation, I think, George, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Come as a package, me and Rick.
How does that work then? Are you still doing that as well as the Swindon Town thing? How does that work?
So I'm full time with Swindon. I like to go back to the gym when I can just to see everyone. But yeah, I'm based in Swindon really now, full time.
And what about you, Ricky? You sort of, running your company as well as being at Swindon?
Yeah, so I do Monday to Thursday and then game days in Swindon. And then the rest of it is done via the laptop, which I weren't the biggest fan of in my playing days, but I've had to learn to be at one with the laptop for a couple of days a week. So
yeah, Rich says you guys are the backbone of the club, and thanks for everything you've done, which is a nice thing to say.
Nice.
Yeah. Now you said about who's the best trainer. We got on here. I don't know if you want to dish the dirt, but who is the worst trainer in the club? Who needs a bit of a kick up the what's it?
Me at the minute.
Oh dear. This, and you don't want to go any further on that one. Just leave that one, do you?
This group of lads,
lucky, I think.
Yeah, we are lucky. This group of lads do crack on with the work. Like typically, you find some footballers don't really believe in the gym work, but we've found that with experiencing the benefits of it, that's the best way to kind of negotiate with the player a little bit, rather than just kind of telling them it's good for them, but actually with them experienced and benefits of it, that kind of seems to work for itself.
Excellent. This is from Shauna, who's been involved with women's football. Could you ask how much does the manager use GPS data in the games? If a player's high-speed running drops, does the manager immediately replace him, or is it a balance of science and tactics? Who wants to take that one?
I think anything you need a bit of balance, don't you? And it's all there to be interpreted, and it's running data shouldn't be the be all and end all of the decisions, and it obviously isn't. It's a tool to use in making decisions more than anything.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I know you two have got to go back to the ground to prepare for tomorrow. Is that right?
We are indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so your final thoughts, and how far are we going to go with this? I mean, I know in rugby you see a lot of the coaches sitting at the back with their laptops and things like that and taking notes. How much does football learn from rugby? You hinted at it at the beginning, but since rugby's turned professional, that's moved on a million miles, isn't it, from where it used to be? Yeah. So has the sport of football learned from that, which seems an odd way around, really, because football was professional before rugby union.
I believe so, and I think you'll see a lot more appointments from rugby men in football. You've seen Ben Ryan at Brentford this summer, who won. Well, I think he won the Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games with Fiji. I think there's obviously things that rugby can learn from football, but
he's gone again. George, I was going to ask about Ed Slater as well. Of course, who we've seen in the last couple of weeks has done that incredible cycle ride, and he's got motor neurone disease, which of course goes along with Stephen Darby, Doddy Weir, and Rob Burrow from the Leeds Rhinos. And this is an increasing worry, isn't it, in professional sport?
Oh, definitely. There's no clear-cut evidence yet, but it can't be no coincidence that there's quite a few of these lads who have had long and successful playing careers in rugby with a lot of head collisions that these sort of conditions are developing. A mate of mine he works at Leicester Tigers, knows of Ed Slater, and it's just really sad, isn't it, more than anything, and kind of getting behind these people with the research to try and mitigate these conditions from happening. It's so important. But yeah, it can't be any coincidence, but just needs more research, really.
And are the professional clubs taking it seriously enough, do you think?
Well, I think concussion in rugby especially is massive. So having to take lads off the pitch to do a testing to make sure they're safe to come back on. Ali Willits has done scat testing about the whole squad, so we've got a baseline measure of sort of their testing from that respect, and regular testing if a lad takes a head knock. But yeah, we try and make sure the player gets the support they need, and we don't take it lightly from our standpoint, because Ricky especially had a lot of head injuries as a player. I'd had head injuries as a player, so I know we all know how it affects you, and it's so important to look after the boys.
Yeah, and of course you're following concussion protocol with other players at the minute, aren't you?
Yeah. So with Kieran Brennan, suffered concussion away at Harrogate, and we had an integrated return play with him. He ticked all the boxes ahead of the next fixture, and unfortunately had symptoms reoccur. So we're kind of back to square one with him. But all the necessary measures were taken in that first instance. It's just you can't always, as we said before, we try and mitigate the risk, but there's always risks there. It's just, again, getting a balance between wanting someone available and also doing what's best for them. But that takes precedence. It's just on this occasion, he had reoccurring symptoms during the fixture and was rightly pulled off. So we took that step to pull him off.
And sort of who makes that initial call? Is it the player who says, "Look, I'm not feeling great. This is how it is"?
Yeah. So the difficulty with head injuries is that it's very subjective. You can't see the injury, so the information you get is from the player, and obviously there's tests you can do with them, and questions you can ask them that will highlight if they are suffering from symptoms. Yeah, that's the difficulty of head injuries. You can't see them, or if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, George, thank you very much. I know you've got to go and get ready for tomorrow. Just quickly and finally, I mean, where the sports science go is infinite, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I think in football you're seeing it. Like Ricky was saying earlier, the club take a lot of pride in us and value us, which is really nice. Which then puts a bit of pressure on us to deliver from a performance standpoint. Yeah, as a club, we're looking to really develop and sort of progress from the academy all the way through to the first team. So it's not just the first team sort of outlook. But yeah, in football, I think, as we said before, it's a little bit behind rugby, but the gap's definitely closing. And also rugby can learn from a lot from football, not making rugby out to be the top of the table, because it's not. But there's certain aspects we've taken from our rugby backgrounds into football. And likewise, I'd do the same if I then went into a rugby background from football.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, George, thank you very much, and appreciate your time, because I know you've got to get ready.
Thanks for having us.
So you've been at the training ground today, and then you're back at the ground tonight. So it's not, it's not a 9-to-5 gig, this, is it?
Oh no, I'm at the ground at the minute. I know Rick will be coming back. Yeah, it's one of them things. We love it. This comes with the job. Yeah, I'll be happy if we get 3 points tomorrow. It's all worth it then.
Are you all right to stay with us for another 5 minutes or so? Or you?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Definitely. So if you got any more questions, send them in, because I assume you're not rushing back to the club if you're already at the club then.
No, Rick's the one coming back, not myself.
Okay.
I'm already here.
So what have you learned since you've been at the football club that you didn't know before?
You can read every textbook in the world, do every examination in the world, but ultimately the job is dealing with people. So the big challenge between last season and this season is when we initially came in last season, every player was new to us. So it was kind of like a blank canvas. So getting to know the players was crucial at the time. And then I've found since this second season, we've got a cohort of lads we had last season, and also a new cohort who've come in. So the way we treat the new lads has got to be completely different to lads we've had a lot of experience with. So we found the lads we've had last season came in great shape, physically robust. And whereas the other lads who come in, not saying they weren't fit or weren't robust, just weren't used to sort of how we operated, which is only natural. So how we dealt with them was a little bit different. And that's something I've realised is that you kind of got to kind of forward think, and I'll do things differently next pre-season. as a result of this one. Because of
Yeah,
that.
it's all about experience, I guess, isn't it? And if you get a player who hasn't had a proper pre-season because he's signed late, he's been a free agent, how does that work? How do you modify a training schedule for them?
So the important thing is working out what he has done. So what their last few weeks have looked like, if they've played many minutes. Sometimes the lads have just been training by themselves, which is completely different to a team environment, just going out on runs, which is a complete different stress to playing football. So work out what they have done. It's important, and then we kind of just integrate them in gradually, whether that means they do part of the session and then we take them out of the session. It's just kind of integrated and kind of, as I said earlier, just giving the player what they need individually rather than that one size fits all approach.
And how soon are they ready to play? I mean, you couldn't just chuck somebody in and expect them to run for 90 minutes, could you? I mean, how quickly can they integrate themselves into a playing situation?
Again, that depends on the individual and what they've done previously. We wouldn't want to throw a lad who hasn't done too much into the deep end and go and do 90 minutes. People would have noticed in the pre-season we built lads up gradually. Some changed the whole team at one half, for example. So yeah, it's very individual based, working out what they've done previously and where they are in their career. So a bit of a on the fence answer, but yeah, it's very individual.
And for those, hang on, there's another one coming in. DiCanio banned ketchup. Is there any contraband that makes it in, or any resistance to food when at training or travelling away? I mean, ketchup was a big thing. It made the headlines at Sunderland, of course, when he didn't quite be successful there. But is there anything that the football club here, or Swindon's football club, would not want players to do, eating-wise?
I wouldn't say there's a specific sort of food item we have as contraband. The nutrition was something we really tried to change at the club. Basically, we felt like the lads were under fueling, basically not eating enough food. So we're quite big on filling the lads up with as much good food as we can, and that kind of differs throughout the season. So our pre-season sort of menus differ. Now we're in season, so that shifts. And again, it's very individual based. But yeah, there's no specific food we say no, we can't have that. It's we try and advise the lads when they're outside the building as well.
Pete says, do the guys get involved at looking at GPS statistics for potential signing? So if the manager comes to you and says, look, I want to sign Cristiano Ronaldo, for instance, would he come to you with a GPS thing and say, look, here is his statistics, what do you think?
Yeah, so the club are very data driven. So their physical sort of status is looked at, definitely. Injury histories, things like that are looked at. It's quite tough to get specific data or individual data points from people, but no, it is looked at heavily to match how we want to play as much as anything, as also wanting to get lads in the door who can physically cope with what we want to do.
Yeah, because a club that wants to do the high press, for instance, you would imagine they have to be fitter than a side that likes to, I don't know, play from the back. I mean, is that fair to say or not?
Well, it's just a different sort of fitness. So a high press, a lot more accel, decels. So then your training has to mirror that or mimic that. Possession based, playing out the back, tend to be aerobically very fit. So your training and sort of demands are just different depending on how you want to play, really.
Okay, George, I'm going to let you go and have a bit of a break because you've got other things to do in a minute. So thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
And it'd be nice to catch up with you later in the season, if that's possible, just to see how it's going. Yeah. And really, to learn more about the sports science, because it's such a fascinating subject. For those of us watching football for a long, long time, it's a kind of new thing. The days of just running up and down steps in one of the stands for training are long gone, I think, aren't they? Although they possibly still do it. But, there's a lot to learn, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, George. And can you thank Ricky when he gets back to the ground? And sorry, he's had some technical problems. But thanks, guys. It's lovely. We do a lot of ex-players on here and things like that. But to see what happens behind the scenes is fascinating. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
No problem.
All the best to you. Okay.
Cheers.
Okay, so that's all
You can
for
disappear
tonight.
now, George, by the way, if you want.
Okay.
Thanks, George. Thank
Bye.
you. So that's all for tonight. One thing to say, on the 20, I think it's the 27th or 29th even, it's a bank holiday Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, we have got Christian Roberts on. So I have got his book here, which is a fascinating read. I just realised it's actually 12 years old. But yes, so we have got Christian Roberts on then, and we've got a couple of others in the pipeline of special guests. So we'll confirm those once we get proper confirmation from them. So that's exciting to look forward to. So so we'll be back next Monday with a Monday night panel after the Rochdale game. We still have fixture wall charts for members to pick up. I've still got some membership cards for people who opted to pick them up. So we'll be in the Legends Lounge tomorrow night. We're still taking memberships. So if anybody hasn't renewed or anybody wants to join, only £5 a season. You get discounted travel and a lot of other benefits. We're going to start doing live events so that members get priority at those and all sorts of things. So it's only a £5 a season. So please come and see us in the Legends Lounge if you want to join. And we will see you next Monday. If anything I've forgotten, Vic?
I don't think, just to reiterate, that SAS Travel will be open in their little cubby hole at the back of the town end tomorrow night before the game. So if you want to go and book for Stockport, that's where you go. Don't forget on Saturday after the game, which I think we're all delighted with, this club shop will be open, won't it, Chris? And I think, you know, we've seen a lot of children at football matches recently, which is fantastic. And they want to go and buy something after the game, don't they? Even if it's a pencil case or something, but they want a souvenir, and, you know, parents will be badgered to go and get those things. So it's good news, I think.
We won't be popular with the adults, but we'll be popular with kids. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching. And we will see you next week.